My name is Ada Johnson, and I am 58 years old. As a retired nurse from Portland, my life has been peaceful until 2 weeks ago. My only son, Michael, 36, has always been the center of my world, along with my precious grandson, Ethan, who just turned 8. After Michael's divorce last year, our bond grew even stronger, which is why his sudden silence terrified me. For 14 days, my calls went unanswered. When I finally went to his house, what I discovered under my grandson's bed changed everything. If you have ever had that gut feeling, something was terribly wrong with someone you love, please like and subscribe. Tell me where you are watching from, and prepare yourself for what I found that day. Michael and I have always shared a special relationship. As a single mother who raised him after his father abandoned us, when Michael was just 3, we formed an unbreakable bond. Despite our struggles, Michael excelled in school, eventually becoming a successful accountant at one of Portland's prestigious firms. He married Sarah right after college, and they seemed perfect together until last year. Their divorce shattered Michael. Sarah had been having an affair with her gym trainer for months before Michael discovered the truth. The betrayal cut him deeply, but what hurt him most was losing daily access to Ethan. The court granted them joint custody, with Ethan alternating weeks between parents. The first few months after the divorce, Michael spiraled into depression. He would call me late at night, his voice hollow, questioning his worth as a husband and father. I spent countless weekends at his small apartment, cooking his favorite meals and trying to lift his spirits while Ethan was with Sarah. Then about 3 months ago, things started improving. Michael secured a better paying position at a different accounting firm. With the increased income, he purchased a charming 3-bedroom house in a family-friendly neighborhood, giving Ethan his own room decorated with race cars and space themes. Michael seemed to be healing, establishing new routines, and even mentioning he might start dating again. Our Sunday dinners became a sacred tradition. Every week, when Ethan was with Michael, I would bring dessert, usually my apple pie that Ethan claimed was magical. We would eat playboard games, and then Michael would read Ethan a bedtime story while I cleaned up. Those evenings were precious, watching my son rebuild his life and confidence. The last normal Sunday, just over 2 weeks ago, I noticed subtle changes in Michael. He seemed slightly distracted, checking his phone more often than usual. When Ethan asked to play Monopoly, Michael suggested a shorter game instead, claiming he had a headache. At one point, while Ethan was in the bathroom, Michael received a call that he took in his bedroom, his voice too low for me to hear. In the bathroom that night, I noticed a prescription bottle in the medicine cabinet. When I was looking for aspirin, I did not recognize the medication name but assumed it was for his headaches. There were other small signs too: mail piled unopened on the counter, dishes from several days in the sink. Despite Michael's usually meticulous nature, and dark circles under his eyes suggesting he was not sleeping well. When I asked if everything was okay, Michael brushed it off with a smile that did not reach his eyes. "Just busy at work, Mom. End of quarter stress." I believed him because I wanted to, and because Michael had always been honest with me. The following Sunday, Michael and Ethan were supposed to come to my house instead. I had prepared Michael's favorite lasagna and bought a new dinosaur puzzle for Ethan. When they did not arrive by the agreed time of 5, I called Michael's cell phone. No answer. I texted. Nothing. By 7, I had called 3 more times, each call going straight to voicemail. I told myself not to overreact. Maybe Michael needed space. Perhaps they had decided to do something special together and forgot to tell me. Michael was an adult after all. But as the evening turned to night and still no word came, the first tendrils of fear began to wrap around my heart. When Monday morning arrived, with still no word from Michael, I called his cell phone again, straight to voicemail. I sent another text: "Michael, please call me. I am worried." No response. By Wednesday, my messages had grown increasingly frantic. "Michael, this is not like you. Please just let me know you and Ethan are okay. After a week of silence, I decided to contact Sarah. We had maintained a cordial relationship after the divorce for Ethan's sake, though conversations were usually brief and centered only on our shared love for the boy. "Hello, Ada." Sarah answered, surprise evident in her voice. "Is everything okay? I'm trying to reach Michael," I explained, trying to keep my voice steady. "He missed our Sunday dinner and has not returned my calls all week. I thought maybe you had heard from him when he dropped Ethan off." There was a pause before Sarah spoke again. "Ada, Michael called me 2 weeks ago. He sounded strange, almost jittery. He asked if I could take Ethan for his week too. Said something came up and he needed some time alone. I figured he told you." My heart sank. "He has not told me anything. Did he say what was wrong?" "No," Sarah replied, concern now creeping into her voice. "He just said he needed time to sort some things out." I assumed it was work-related. Ethan has been asking about him though. After hanging up with Sarah, I immediately called Michael's workplace. The receptionist transferred me to his supervisor, a woman named Janet. "Mrs. Johnson, I'm afraid Michael requested 2 weeks of personal leave rather suddenly. He emailed 10 days ago, saying he had a family emergency. We assumed it involved you or his son." That was when true fear took hold. Michael had fabricated a family emergency, sent his son away, and disappeared. This was not like him at all. I spent the next day calling the few close friends Michael had maintained after the divorce. None had heard from him, though two mentioned he had cancelled plans recently without explanation. Sleep became impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Michael's face, but distorted, somehow afraid. One night, I dreamed he was trapped in a cold, dark place calling for help, but no one could hear him. I woke up shaking, knowing I could no longer wait and hope he would reappear. 10 days after Michael's disappearance, I drove to his house. The neighborhood looked peaceful in the morning light, completely at odds with the turmoil in my heart. As I approached Michael's house, troubling details emerged. Newspapers were piled on the driveway. The mailbox overflowed with envelopes and flyers. The normally well-maintained front lawn needed mowing. I parked in the driveway and noticed Michael's car was in the garage, visible through the side window. So he had not gone anywhere, at least not by car. Before approaching the house, I decided to ask the neighbors if they had seen him. Mrs. Delaney, an elderly woman who lived next door, shook her head when I asked. "I have not seen Michael in at least a week, dear." "But—" She hesitated, lowering her voice. "I have heard strange noises from the house at night. Thumping sounds like someone moving furniture. I thought maybe he was redecorating." Another neighbor, a young man who worked nights, mentioned seeing lights go on and off in the house at odd hours. Sometimes at 3 or 4 in the morning, the lights in the upstairs bedroom would switch on, then off again after just a few minutes. With growing apprehension, I thanked them and walked to Michael's front door. I rang the doorbell and waited. Nothing. I knocked loudly, calling his name. Silence. Finally, I reached into my purse and pulled out the emergency key Michael had given me when he bought the house. "Just in case something ever happens to me," he had said when pressing it into my palm. At the time, I had laughed at his melodrama. Now those words echoed ominously in my mind as I inserted the key into the lock. The door swung open with an eerie creak. The house was unnaturally quiet. No television sounds, no footsteps, not even the usual hum of the refrigerator that I always noticed during my visits. But what hit me immediately was the smell, not of decay, as I had feared in my darkest moments, but something chemical, almost medicinal, mingling with the staleness of an unventilated space. "Michael!" I called out, my voice sounding unnaturally loud in the silence. "Michael, it is Mom. Are you here?" I stepped into the living room and froze. It looked like Michael had left in a hurry. A half-eaten sandwich sat on the coffee table, now hard as rock and growing mold. The television remote lay on the floor rather than in its usual place on the side table. Unwashed dishes filled the sink, crusty with dried food. A coffee mug on the counter still had liquid in it, now covered with a film of white fuzz. On the kitchen table sat Michael's cell phone, explaining why he had not answered my calls. Next to it was a notebook open to a page filled with Michael's normally neat handwriting, now jagged and hurried. I leaned closer to read. They are watching the house again. Third black car this week, drove by 4 times yesterday. Not coincidence. They know I have figured it out. Connection between missing persons. All had children. All disappeared after visiting the park. Can't let them find Ethan. Have to protect him. Have to stay vigilant. My blood ran cold. This sounded like paranoid delusions. Michael had always been so rational, so grounded. I flipped through more pages, each entry more disturbing than the last. References to them, watching him, theories about government experiments, fears about Ethan being targeted. With shaking legs, I moved toward the living room wall that divided it from the dining room. What I saw made my heart race. Michael had covered the entire surface with newspaper clippings, printouts from news websites, and hand-drawn maps. Red string connected various articles all about local disappearances over the past year. Notes in Michael's handwriting filled the margins, circling patterns that existed only in his mind. I needed to see Ethan's room to confirm my growing fear that Michael was experiencing some kind of psychological break. Upstairs, the door to Ethan's bedroom stood ajar. Inside, everything looked normal, even pristine. The race car bed was neatly made, toys organized in bins, books arranged on shelves. It looked untouched, like a display room rather than a lived-in child's space. As I turned to leave, something on the hardwood floor in the hallway caught my eye. Long scratch marks, as if something heavy had been dragged, led from Ethan's room to the closed door of the basement. My mouth went dry. Michael rarely used the basement, mainly for storage and the home gym equipment he had purchased after the divorce. I stood before the basement door, my hand on the knob, unable to turn it. What if Michael was down there hurt, or worse, what if someone else was down there? The scratches, the paranoid writings, the strange smell, it all pointed to something terribly wrong. Fear paralyzed me. After several moments of internal struggle, I backed away from the door. I needed help. This was beyond my ability to handle alone. With trembling fingers, I retreated to my car and called 911. My son has been missing for 10 days. I told the dispatcher, my voice cracking. I'm at his house now, and something is very wrong. There are disturbing writings, strange marks on the floor. I think he might be having some kind of mental health crisis. 20 minutes later, 2 police officers arrived. Officer Jenkins, a tall man with salt and pepper hair, and Officer Rodriguez, a younger woman with kind eyes but a professional demeanor. They listened to my rushed explanation as I led them into the house. "Ma'am, when was the last time you spoke with your son?" Officer Jenkins asked, notebook in hand, as we stood in Michael's living room. "Almost 2 weeks ago. We had our usual Sunday dinner here. He seemed distracted, but otherwise fine." I explained, watching, as Officer Rodriguez examined the wall of clippings and notes. Officer Jenkins nodded, his expression non-committal. "And you said he is 36 years old. Has he ever disappeared like this before?" The implication was clear. Michael was an adult who might have chosen to disconnect. "Never. He is responsible, devoted to his son. Something is wrong. Look at this." I insisted, showing them the notebook with the paranoid writings. Officer Rodriguez joined us, her expression more concerned after seeing the wall. "Has your son ever been diagnosed with any mental health conditions? Schizophrenia, bipolar disorder? Anything like that?" "No, never," I said, though a nagging doubt crept in. Would Michael have told me if he had been diagnosed recently? He has been under stress since his divorce last year, but nothing that would explain this. I showed them the scratches in the hallway leading to the basement door. Officer Jenkins pulled out his flashlight as Officer Rodriguez drew her weapon. "Just as a precaution," she assured me. "Mr. Johnson, this is the Portland Police. If you are down there, please respond." Officer Jenkins called out as he slowly opened the basement door. The beam of his flashlight swept over the basement stairs. With me waiting at the top, both officers descended cautiously. I heard them moving around, opening doors, their radios occasionally crackling with static. After several tense minutes, they returned. The basement is clear, Officer Rodriguez reported. Just exercise equipment, storage boxes, nothing unusual. They conducted a thorough search of the entire house, checking closets, under beds, behind shower curtains. Nothing. No sign of Michael or any indication of where he might have gone. We will file a missing persons report, Officer Jenkins said, finally closing his notebook. But honestly, Mrs. Johnson, this looks like your son might be experiencing some mental health issues and chose to take some time away. The writings are concerning, yes, but there is no sign of foul play or forced entry. He would not just leave. I insisted, frustration building at their lack of urgency. His car is still here. His phone is here. Something is wrong. Officer Rodriguez put a gentle hand on my arm. We will do everything by the book, I promise. But right now there is not much else we can do. Adults have the right to go missing if they choose. As they prepared to leave, Officer Rodriguez hung back slightly. Mrs. Johnson, she said quietly, I have a brother with schizophrenia. Some of those writings remind me of his episodes. Come back tomorrow morning around 9. Detective Wallace from our mental health response team will be on duty. I will make sure he knows to expect you. I nodded gratefully, but the thought of leaving now with so many questions unanswered felt impossible. I'm going to stay in town tonight, I told her. There is a motel just down the road. After the officers left, I locked up Michael's house and drove to the nearby Pinewood Motel. The room was basic but clean. I sat on the edge of the bed, exhaustion washing over me, yet knowing sleep would not come easily. I called Sarah to update her, assuring her I would let her know the moment I learned anything new. Around midnight, my cell phone rang, startling me from a restless half-sleep. The screen showed unknown caller. My heart racing, I answered. Hello, Michael. Is that you? At first there was only silence, then the sound of breathing, shallow and rapid. I pressed the phone harder against my ear. Michael, please say something if it is you. The breathing continued, then faintly in the background, I heard what sounded like a child crying. Not Ethan. The voice seemed younger. Before I could speak again, the call ended abruptly. I tried calling back, but it went straight to a generic voicemail. Sleep was impossible after that. I spent the rest of the night staring at the ceiling, waiting for morning to come. The next morning, I arrived at Michael's house 15 minutes early, anxiously waiting in my car until I saw a police vehicle pull into the driveway. Officer Rodriguez stepped out, followed by a middle-aged man in plain clothes who introduced himself as Detective Wallace. Mrs. Johnson, I have reviewed the report from yesterday, he said after handshakes. Officer Rodriguez mentioned some concerning writings that might indicate your son is experiencing a mental health crisis. I specialize in these types of cases. Detective Wallace had a careful way of speaking and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. As we entered the house, I showed him the notebook and the wall of clippings that had so disturbed me the day before. How long has your son lived alone? He asked, studying the wall with methodical attention. About 3 months in this house. Before that, he had an apartment after the divorce. I explained. The detective nodded, taking photos of the wall with his phone. And the divorce, was it amicable? No, I admitted. His wife had an affair. Michael was devastated, especially about the shared custody arrangement for their son. Detective Wallace moved through the house with careful precision, noting details the officers had missed yesterday. In the bathroom cabinet, he found 3 prescription bottles I had not noticed before. Risperidone, lorazepam, trazodone, he read aloud. Mrs. Johnson, these are medications typically prescribed for schizophrenia, anxiety, and depression. Did you know your son was on these medications? The shock must have shown on my face. No, I knew nothing about this. When were they prescribed? The detective checked the dates. The oldest prescription is from 4 months ago, refilled twice since then. He placed the bottles in a plastic evidence bag, explaining it would help them track Michael's doctor. In Michael's bedroom, the detective found something else, a leather-bound journal hidden between the mattress and box spring. Unlike the scattered notebook downstairs, this journal contained coherent dated entries documenting what appeared to be Michael's struggle with his mental health. I told Dr. Reeves about the voices today. Read one entry from 2 months ago. She adjusted my medication. Says it is common for schizophrenia to emerge in your 30s, especially after trauma. The divorce was the trigger, she thinks. I have not told Mom. She would worry too much and I need to prove I can handle this for Ethan's sake. A more recent entry sent chills down my spine. Something is wrong with Ethan. When he came back from Sarah's, he was different. Subtle things, the way he holds his spoon, is how he arranges his toys. It is not Ethan. Something is inhabiting my son. I cannot tell anyone. They will think I'm having delusions again. But I know. A father knows his child. I have to protect the real Ethan. I have to find him before it is too late. Detective Wallace closed the journal gently. Mrs. Johnson, I believe your son is experiencing a serious schizophrenic episode. These delusions about his son being replaced are unfortunately common in paranoid schizophrenia. The good news is there is no indication he would harm his actual son, which is why he likely asked his ex-wife to keep Ethan. But where is Michael now? I asked, tears threatening. That is what we need to find out. Given these writings, I am concerned about his safety. Let us continue searching the house more thoroughly this time. Officer Rodriguez, please check the attic again. I will take another look at the basement, Mrs. Johnson. Would you mind looking through your grandson's room once more? Sometimes people in Michael's condition hide significant items in places associated with the focus of their delusions. We split up, each taking a different area of the house. I entered Ethan's room, again this time opening drawers, checking under the pillows, looking behind picture frames. Nothing seemed out of place or unusual. As I was about to leave, something caught my eye. The race car bed, designed to look like a red Ferrari, had always sat flush against the floor on one side, but had small wheels on the other to make it easy to move for cleaning. Now it seemed slightly askew, as if it had been shifted. And then, as I stood perfectly still holding my breath, I saw it, the slightest movement under the bed, like a shadow shifting. My heart pounded in my throat. Detective Wallace. I called out, my voice higher than normal. Detective Wallace, please come up here. Within seconds, I heard footsteps on the stairs. Detective Wallace appeared in the doorway, Officer Rodriguez right behind him. There is something under the bed, I whispered, pointing with a shaking hand. I saw it move. Detective Wallace motioned for me to step back into the hallway. He drew his weapon, and Officer Rodriguez did the same. With professional efficiency, they positioned themselves on either side of the bed. Portland Police. Detective Wallace announced firmly. If someone is under there, come out now with your hands visible. A whimpering sound emerged from beneath the bed, so faint I almost thought I imagined it. The detective nodded to Officer Rodriguez, who holstered her weapon and carefully grasped the edge of the bed frame. On 3, Detective Wallace said quietly. 1, 2, 3. Officer Rodriguez lifted the bed frame up and to the side, revealing what lay beneath, and the sight stole the breath from my lungs. There, curled in a hollowed-out space where floorboards had been removed and the cavity enlarged, was my son. Michael lay in a fetal position, his body frighteningly thin, clothes soiled, hair matted against his scalp. His eyes, wide with terror, blinked rapidly in the sudden light. No, no, no. He moaned, trying to press himself further into the small space. They will find me. They will find Ethan through me. I have to stay hidden. Michael, I cried, rushing forward, despite Detective Wallace's outstretched arm trying to hold me back. Michael, it is Mom. You are safe now. His eyes focused on me briefly, a flash of recognition quickly consumed by paranoid fear. Mom, run. Take Ethan and run. They are in the walls. They are listening. Detective Wallace crouched down, keeping his voice calm and even. Michael, I am Detective Wallace with the Portland Police. You are safe. No one is in the walls. We are here to help you. I could now see that Michael had created a small living space in the cavity. There were empty water bottles, wrappers from energy bars. even a small portable camping toilet in the corner of the space. He must have been hiding there for days, maybe the entire 2 weeks. How long have you been under here, Michael? I asked, tears streaming down my face. His eyes darted around wildly. 12 days, maybe 13. Had to protect Ethan. Had to make sure they thought I was gone so they would not look for him. The replacements are everywhere. When Officer Rodriguez tried to help Michael out from the space, he became agitated, thrashing and screaming about them finding him. His bony hands clutched at the floor, fingernails broken and caked with dirt, likely from digging out the cavity. "We need paramedics," Detective Wallace said to Officer Rodriguez, who immediately spoke into her radio requesting emergency medical assistance. It took both officers to restrain Michael as his terror escalated into a full panic attack. He fought against them with surprising strength for someone in such a weakened state, screaming about protecting Ethan and entities in the walls. As the paramedics arrived and sedated my son, I stood in the doorway of Ethan's cheerful bedroom, watching the medical team strap my once rational, loving son onto a stretcher. His body was dangerously dehydrated, his muscles atrophied from days of confinement in that small space. "He will be taken to Portland General," one paramedic explained gently. "The psychiatric ward. You can follow in your car." As they carried Michael out, Detective Wallace placed a compassionate hand on my shoulder. "Mrs. Johnson's schizophrenia is treatable with the right medication and therapy. Your son was trying to get help evidenced by those prescriptions. Something triggered this severe episode, but with proper care, many people with this condition lead normal, productive lives." I nodded numbly, unable to form words, as I watched the ambulance doors close on my son's unconscious form. The son I thought I knew completely. The son who had been suffering in silence, afraid to tell me about his diagnosis. Perhaps worried I would think less of him or fight for custody of Ethan myself. How had I missed the signs? What kind of mother, what kind of nurse fails to notice her own son spiraling into such profound mental illness? These questions tormented me as I followed the ambulance to the hospital, the first of many difficult days to come. The psychiatric ward of Portland General Hospital became my second home over the following weeks. Michael spent the first 3 days heavily sedated while his body recovered from dehydration and malnutrition. I sat by his bed for hours holding his limp hand, studying the face I thought I knew so well, searching for signs of the son I remembered. Dr. Eleanor Matthews, the head psychiatrist, met with me on the 4th day. "Mrs. Johnson, your son has been diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. The condition likely began developing shortly after his divorce, a common timeline as schizophrenia often emerges in response to significant stress or trauma in genetically predisposed individuals." But why did he not tell me? I asked the question that had been haunting me since finding his medications. "I am a nurse. I would have understood." Dr. Matthews smiled sadly. "Shame is a powerful force. Michael's medical records show he was determined to handle this on his own, to prove he could still be a good father to Ethan despite his diagnosis. The custody arrangement was contingent on his mental stability. He feared losing access to his son. The first 2 weeks of Michael's hospitalization were the hardest. He remained paranoid and delusional despite medication adjustments. During my visits, he would sometimes recognize me, other times accuse me of being an imposter. The nurses assured me this was normal during the stabilization phase. Meanwhile, I had the painful task of explaining the situation to Ethan. Sarah and I decided to do it together, presenting a united front for the boy's sake. "Your daddy is sick," I told my grandson as we sat in Sarah's living room. "But not the kind of sick like when you get a cold. His brain is sick. It makes him see and hear things that are not really there. Like when I have bad dreams." Ethan asked, his small face serious. "Kind of," Sarah said, stroking his hair. "Except Daddy cannot tell they are not real even when he is awake." "Can I see him?" Ethan asked. "Not yet, sweetheart," I explained. "The doctors need to help him get better first. But you can draw him pictures, and I will take them to him." To my surprise, Sarah showed remarkable compassion throughout the ordeal. Despite their difficult history, she never once suggested limiting Michael's access to Ethan once he recovered. Instead, she asked thoughtful questions during my updates about his treatment and offered to adjust the custody schedule to whatever would best support Michael's recovery. Ethan needs his father, she told me one evening as we shared coffee after Ethan had gone to bed. And despite everything, Michael is a good dad. This illness does not change that. I threw myself into learning everything I could about schizophrenia. I joined support groups for families of people with mental illness, read medical journals, and had long conversations with Michael's treatment team. I learned about the importance of medication compliance, stress reduction, and creating a structured environment. After 3 weeks of treatment adjustments, Michael had his first truly lucid day. I arrived for my regular morning visit to find him sitting up in bed, the fog of delusion lifted from his eyes. "Mom," he said as I entered, his voice cracking with emotion. "I'm so sorry." I rushed to him, enveloping his still too thin frame in a tight embrace. "You have nothing to apologize for. Nothing." "I remember bits and pieces," he said, tears flowing freely. "Hiding under Ethan's bed, thinking someone had replaced him. God, Mom, I was so convinced it was real." "How is Ethan? Is he afraid of me now?" "Ethan is fine," I assured him. "He misses his daddy and draws you a picture every day. Look." I pulled out the folder of Ethan's artwork, each page a colorful representation of Michael and Ethan, doing things together. Playing catch, riding bikes, reading books. Michael traced his fingers over the crayon lines. I never wanted him to see me like this. I thought I could handle it on my own. The medications were working at first, but then I started skipping doses because of the side effects. That was when things got bad. "Why did you not tell me about the diagnosis?" I asked the question that had plagued me for weeks. Michael looked down, shame evident in his posture. "I did not want to be a burden. You have always been so proud of me, the successful son with the perfect family." Then Sarah left and I started falling apart when the doctor said, "Schizophrenia." All I could think was that I was officially broken, that you would see me as a patient instead of your son, that the court would take Ethan away. "Listen to me," I said, taking his face in my hands. "I have always been proud of you, not because you were perfect, but because you are kind, loving, and resilient. This changes nothing about who you are. We will face this together as a family." The road to recovery was not straight or easy. There were setbacks, days when the medication seemed ineffective, or the side effects too difficult to manage. But there was progress too. Michael began participating in group therapy, forming connections with others facing similar challenges. He worked with occupational therapists to develop coping strategies for when he felt paranoid thoughts emerging. I moved temporarily to an apartment near the hospital to be closer to both Michael and Ethan. Sarah agreed to adjust the custody schedule once Michael was discharged, allowing for shorter supervised visits that would gradually increase as Michael stabilized. We converted the guest room in my apartment into Ethan's room, decorating it together with space-themed items like his room at Michael's house. This became the safe place for father and son to rebuild their relationship under my watchful eye. 6 months after that terrifying day when we found Michael under Ethan's bed, he was discharged to a supervised living facility. The 3-bedroom house was staffed with mental health professionals, but allowed residents significant independence. Michael had his own space, but with the security of knowing help was immediately available if he felt his symptoms returning. Our Sunday dinners resumed, but with new traditions. Now we started each gathering with a family therapy session where Ethan could ask questions about his father's illness in an age-appropriate way. The therapist helped Michael explain to Ethan that sometimes his brain told him scary things that were not real, and how the medications helped quiet those scary thoughts. Ethan, with the remarkable resilience of children, accepted this new version of his father with little difficulty. "Daddy's brain gets mixed up sometimes," he explained matter-of-factly to his friends, "but he is getting better at fixing it." The hardest lesson for me was learning to recognize the signs of Michael's condition while respecting his independence. Every missed call no longer sent me into panic mode, but I remained vigilant about changes in his speech patterns or behaviors that might indicate he was struggling. Michael's new treatment team developed a comprehensive wellness plan that included medication management, regular therapy, stress reduction techniques, and a healthy lifestyle. Most importantly, they created a crisis plan with specific steps to follow if Michael or those around him noticed warning signs of an impending episode. A year after the incident, Michael had progressed enough to move into his own apartment, with Ethan staying over 2 weekends each month. He found a new job as an accounts manager at a smaller firm with a supportive work environment, disclosing his condition up front and arranging for accommodations like a flexible schedule for therapy appointments. Mental illness is not a journey with a definitive end. It is a winding road of management, acceptance, and adaptation. Some days are harder than others. But watching my son reclaim his life piece by piece has been a profound lesson in the power of proper treatment, family support, and personal determination. If you or someone you love is struggling with mental health issues, please do not wait until they are hiding under a bed, lost in delusions. Reach out for help. Mental illness is nothing to be ashamed of, and early intervention can prevent the kind of crisis our family endured. Have you ever had to support a loved one through a mental health crisis? Please share your experiences in the comments below. If this story touched you or might help someone you know, please like and subscribe to help spread awareness. Remember, your support through likes, subscribes, and shares helps these important conversations reach those who might be suffering in silence. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you and your loved ones health and healing on whatever path you are walking.